Well, as I mentioned in that interview, Indigenous, First Nations, and Inuit people have been questioning whether or not they are a priority for this government anymore. Many had expected a lot more from the Liberals that swept into power, saying that the most important relationship in this country is the one with Indigenous, First Nations, and Inuit people. So, is that still true? Joining me now in studio is Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Obed. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate that.
Happy to be here.
I wanted to ask you first your reaction to that interview there. And when the minister says that the pace of progress is frustrating, do you think that that helps at all? Or do you think that that actually is a hindrance because you'd like to see more progress?
Yeah, I appreciate the empathy that the minister is showing, but I also believe that governments have to be governments. You know, on our side, we represent the rights of Inuit. We come to the table trying to build a better Canada and build a better future for our people. And the vast amount of the power still lies within the federal government or provinces and territories. So when ministers get frustrated with us, sometimes it feels like, well, then who do you turn to? We would like for the federal government to show leadership and know that it is the one that must lead. And if it's frustrated, perhaps frustrated within its own departments and within its own political process.
The minister is saying that it's going to take generations. How do you square that with how the Liberals came into power and saying that they were going to take these issues very seriously back in 2015, excuse me?
Yeah, no, I think it's correct for some of our broader systemic challenges that we face in society, and to undo 150 years of colonization. It may, in some instances, take generations. There are very specific things that we had hoped for in specific timelines that are more easily achievable, and I would hope that we can just get to work on, such as the Government of Canada standing side by side with the Inuit and saying we will eliminate TB together in Inuit Nunangat by 2030. We announced this in 2018. We had a good first few years. Mm-hmm. We had pre-budget submissions this year of $131 million over the next 5 years. The Government of Canada didn't provide any funding. So I don't know how we get to the elimination of TB, which is 300 times the rate for all other Canadians in Inuit Nunangat, through zero investments in a critical time within the ambition that we all share together of 2030.
What's the explanation for not funding that at all?
There really isn't one. I mean, there's an empathy from ministers who are responsible. There's a pledge that there were Treasury Board submissions. Ultimately, within the budgetary processes, everyone points the finger at Minister Freeland and the Prime Minister as to being, the all-powerful entities mm-hmm. that say yes or no, even if departments would like to work with us.
But that still doesn't solve the problem in your community. I mean, that TB is still an issue.
Yeah, and it was the first time that the Government of Canada has ever pledged to reduce a socioeconomic indicator to the national average or lower for our people. So for us, it is a transformative relationship that we're looking for. And this particular issue was one that was a benchmark, a perfect celebration point of what government and Inuit could do together. But unfortunately, it just hasn't been a priority for the government the way that it has been for Inuit.
In the past, you've said that you've seen incredible advancements in this relationship with the government, but at the same time, you've also said we're stuck in incremental positive change. What do you mean by that? Well,
the time that Inuit leadership spends with the Prime Minister and with the Prime Minister's cabinet is unprecedented. Mm-hmm. In the past, we were lucky to get one meeting with the INAC minister a year, and perhaps every 3 to 4 years, maybe have a 30-minute meeting with a Prime Minister. Now we have structured meetings through the Inuit Crown Partnership Committee. We are named explicitly in federal budgets, and then I have a relationship, as do Inuit leadership, with many of the federal cabinet. So the relationship is better. We have legislation that shows that we can co-develop legislation like the UNDRIP Act. So there are bits and pieces that are moving, but then there are essential issues like official language status of Inuktitut in our homeland mm-hmm. that remain almost completely out of reach and with no clear reasoning for the discrepancy between what UNDRIP says and the UNDRIP Act says versus the government's unwillingness to consider Inuktitut as an official language for a jurisdiction like Nunavut.
We've got about a year left until there's an election. A lot of people are predicting potentially a change in government. Are you hoping in this next year there will be a ramp up of things getting done by this Liberal government? And are you at all concerned about what could be coming in 2025 if there is a change in government?
Well, I get worried every time there's an election. Every time there's, whether even a party gets reelected and maybe it's a minority government versus a majority government, perhaps new mandate letters are written, there's always the fear that reconciliation and the work specifically with Inuit is going to diminish. I would say in the next year, you look at the polls, and I believe it's between 20 and 22% down, the Liberal Party is now. What do they have to lose? So if you have an agenda and you believe in it, let's get to work and do as much work as we possibly can that is co-developed, that is in the spirit of reconciliation, that does change Canada for the better. Because that's, ultimately, that's the window that we have, that we know that we have. And I don't understand if they're going to be timid in the next year about just doing the things that we all said that we would do together.
And get it done once and for all.
Absolutely.
Okay. Appreciate the time today. Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami President Natan Obed, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Nakunik.